But first, how much worse does it need to get before our government starts to make the biggest issue for the majority of Australians a priority? How many more meals do Australians need to skip because they can't afford them? How many more everyday Australians need to be booted out of their homes because they are defaulting on their mortgages or can't make the rent this month? How many more Australians who've never broken the law in their life need to do a runner at a servo because they can't pay for the petrol needed to get to work or the kids to school? Look around. This isn't just a cheap, easy line for the opposition to throw out to damage those in power. It's real. And speaking of power, who's had a cheaper bill over the past 6 months, year? I haven't. In fact, they've increased exponentially. And I'm not just here reflecting on a vibe or a feeling. We are now seeing concrete evidence that this crisis, the cost of living crisis, is worsening. Homelessness in New South Wales is at record highs. And you can rid yourselves now of the cliches too. They aren't all drug addicts, they aren't all suffering from mental health issues, they aren't all derelicts or criminals or people choosing to do it. Increasingly, they are everyday Australians. People like you and I. Some who still work in regular jobs. They might be your colleagues, in fact. They can't find a home or they can't afford one. They're mums with young kids, women in their 50s and 60s. In Victoria, there's been a 24% jump in petrol theft from March 2021 to March this year. You think every single one of them is a delinquent? No, of course not. When normally law-abiding Australians feel they have no choice when it comes to necessities, we're in real trouble. When COVID hit, some of the images we were presented with were harrowing. Hospitals full, with doctors weeping. Makeshift morgues in Central Park. The elderly on their deathbeds behind glass, unable to hold their children for one last time. All awful. But I tell you the image etched in my mind from that time. The lines outside Centrelink. I vividly remember TV cameras snaking in and out of the long queue, capturing the masses. What struck me wasn't so much the number of people, and there were thousands all over the country. It was the look on their faces. You could see it through the masks, their eyes. They were ashamed. They were embarrassed. They were desperate. It made me feel sick. Aussies who'd never asked for a handout suddenly forced to. And their pain is all of our pain. As a nation, we are only as good as our worst off. Now, that was a pandemic, once in a lifetime, a freak event. But don't for a second think those kinds of scenes can't be repeated. If cost of living and housing isn't addressed and pronto, we could see what we saw at the start of COVID in even greater numbers. And won't that be a national shame, a blight on our society? And we won't be able to blame a virus either. There are millions of Australians doing it so tough. Many of them Indigenous, absolutely. Many of them not. They all deserve better. And not just because we were promised it many, many, many times, but because that's who we are as a country. We help our mates, we help each other, regardless of where you come from, what you look like, who you love. And our leaders would do well to remember that.